Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel, the best place to get adoption advice and advocacy for children in need. In this video, I am going to share with you where to start when considering adoption. Now, this video is inspired by a question that one of my subscribers asked me a while back. His name is Kevin, and this was his question. He said, if you had met a client 1 to 3 years before they came to you about the adoption process, what would you want them to know and do? So that's what I'll be answering in this video. If you're sure that adoption is the route that you want to take, then this video right here is going to be really helpful, where I talk about adopting a baby and how to get started. And this video is also going to be really helpful to kind of decide if you're not sure if you're adopting domestically or internationally, which is the best way to go. Okay, so make sure you check out either one of those for further steps for your adoption. All right, so to answer Kevin's question, okay, what is basically step 0 for someone who's considering adoption? I want to answer this question in basically 2 different answers. My first answer is going to talk about really one group of folks, and my second answer is going to deal with another group of folks. Okay, my first group of folks that I deal with on a consistent basis are those folks who really are looking at adoption as their very last resort. Okay, what I mean by that is they're considering adoption as an option to grow their family, but they're also looking at other options such as surrogacy, infertility treatments, maybe in vitro. They're really looking at all of their options as far as growing their family is concerned. And for those group of folks, usually when all the other options have failed, right? In vitro has failed, other fertility treatments have failed, they're not sure about surrogacy, they think it's kind of iffy sometimes. That's when they finally resort to, okay, let's do adoption because nothing else is working for us to try to have a child biologically, okay? Now, for that group of folks, okay, my step 0 advice to you is to really start getting healing for the trauma of infertility, because that's exactly what it is. Infertility is trauma. Now, I'm not a therapist, right? I don't counsel people on this, but lots of therapists actually do this kind of work specifically. And what they do is that they help people get healed from the trauma of infertility. So it really is a thing. Now, if you think about it, I'm sure maybe this is the first time you've heard something like that if you're in this group of folks that's been suffering from infertility, but you understand the emotional roller coaster and just the pain that comes with infertility. So my step 0 advice for folks who have experienced that before they really start looking into adoption is to really make sure that you're doing what you can to get your heart ready for adoption, because adoption has its own emotional ups and downs. So if you're not completely healed from the trauma of infertility, or at least you're on your way on being healed from the trauma of infertility, and you jump into adoption, it creates this compound effect. And then what I see happen a lot in my law office is folks start to give up with their adoption very soon because they can't cope with, the what if questions and the uncertainty of adoption. And so, those folks who have done the work of really working through the trauma of infertility, who are going into adoption, they just fare way much better than their counterparts, right? Just because they've done that work. So my step 0 advice, again, my recommendation for that group of folks who have unfortunately suffered from the pain of infertility is to really take a step back before you jump into adoption and work through that trauma and really work through getting healed for that as much as you can before you jump into adoption. The other group of folks that I work with on a consistent basis are those who maybe already have biological children, or maybe they don't, and they just are really desiring to adopt an older child from foster care internationally. Now, these group of folks are usually really wanting to give, children in need safe homes. So children in need who are already alive. I should probably specify that, because, those who are adopting a newborn are also wanting to give, home to children in need since their moms are placing them for adoption. But those who are wanting to adopt older children, I find that they're just really, they have a heart to adopt kids who are already alive, who have already been through a lot of difficult circumstances. They want to be that safe place for them. For those folks, my step 0 of your adoption is my step 0 advice for adoption is to really take the time to be educated about trauma in children who have been abandoned, who have been left by their parents, trauma in foster care children, and also internationally, those kids who are in orphanages for a long, long time. Just being really educated about trauma and how it affects children and how, different people exhibit trauma behaviors is going to be so helpful for you, because once you start seriously looking into it and you're starting to call agencies and you're actually getting ready to adopt that child, you'll just be so much more emotional ready to handle what what comes your way. I think the biggest misconception about trauma in older kids is that most people just kind of imagine that trauma looks like violence. Like, man, this kid is so traumatized, they're gonna be like burning my house down, they're gonna be throwing things in my house, they're gonna be breaking my windows, or their behavior is gonna be so out of control that I won't know what to do. And I would say that's really, really rare cases. And of course, it's the rare cases that always get the most attention, and people just kind of use that as a picture of what may happen to all the other foster children. But I can tell you, I've worked with so many foster children. Some of them were the sweetest children I've ever met in my life. And they just exhibit trauma differently. Some of them just go really quiet. Maybe they won't talk to you for a while because they are processing their emotions. So trauma doesn't equal violence. And so just being really educated on that is going to be helpful for you, so that when you approach these older children, you have a better understanding of how to properly understand the behaviors they're exhibiting. And instead of kind of looking at it as they're a bad kid or they're doing something to me, when you understand trauma and how it works, that you can actually see the behavior in its proper context and actually help that child come out of that behavior and feel safe and loved. And lots of kids, when they're loved fiercely, and somebody who's very well trauma informed can really help these kids become healed with their emotions and actually stop exhibiting, trauma behaviors. Now, again, I always say, get a therapist, psychologist, whatever you need to do, get a professional involved who can really help with all of that. But there's so much material out there available on trauma, especially with children who were adopted in the foster care system or in orphanages, that's an excellent start for that group of folks. Which group of folks are you in? Are you in the first group of folks who have unfortunately experienced the pain of infertility and is just kind of considering adoption right now? Or are you in the group of folks that have just already made up your mind that you want to help children who are already alive, who are in need? Let me know in the comments below. If you are considering different options for growing your family right now, right, you're looking into fertility treatments, you're looking into surrogacy, you're maybe exploring embryo adoption, and you're also looking into adoption, but you're not really sure what to expect when considering adoption specifically, click the link in the description box to access my course, where I go into way more detail about the 0 step of adoption and really what to expect and how to prepare yourself for the adoption journey. Now, when you go through the course, really the purpose of it is to help you make that decision, right? Is adoption really the right route for me? Or do I want to just kind of put a pause on that right now and just go for these other options and see how I fare out? So if you're interested in that, the link is in the description box below to access the course. Now, if you like this video, make sure that you click that like button. Be sure to subscribe to my channel and share this with your friends. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.